another excerpt of Jonathan Karl's book about how the Trump White House illustrates the incestuous relationship between them and Fox News. Not just the Trump White House, but of course, Republicans and Fox News. This is according to one part of according to one part of the book, former Attorney General Bill Barr ended up actually being screamed at by Maria Bartiromo. Oh, this is fun already. So now this, of course, is over the so-called supposed massive voter fraud following Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election. Now, the book describes Bartiromo as both unhinged and screaming about this voter fraud. So now, William Barr. So understand, William Barr was chosen by Donald Trump to be a loyalist, and William Barr was very, very loyal to Trump up until the point of having him and the DOJ steal the election. That was something that William Barr was not able to do. Okay, that is something that William Barr is like, no, that's the line. I will do everything in my legal power to, sway opinion and back you up, and we'll pull out all these legal tricks. But there is no legal trick. There is no way that I can literally steal an election from you at the Department of Justice. Nor am I going to open up investigations over this election that you clearly lost. It's over. It's a give up, son. Give up. It's done. Over. Clean up. Go home. Okay, we're done with this. We're done with this. Nonetheless, and by the way, as I mentioned that, remember that William Barr is a terrible person. So there's no good people in this story. Nonetheless, he calls him up. Bartiromo does. And starts screaming at him, what did I do? Why don't you do something? You need to do something. You got to do something. The mass voter fraud is everywhere. Stole it from the election. Donald Trump. And he's like, no, I'm not, I can't, I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to risk my neck for Donald Trump. No. And so he fact-checked her in an exit interview with the Associated Press. So now, Bartiromo, the book describes, had once been a widely respected and trailblazing financial journalist. As a correspondent for CNBC, she was the first television reporter to report live from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Now, for me, I don't give a rip. Like, oh, wow, New York Stock Exchange, wow, ooh. But, of course, according to these CNBC and the establishment in Washington, they're like, can you believe she once reported on the floor of the stock exchange, the most important thing in the world? Oh, my gosh. And now, look, she has fallen from grace. She is now just repeating Trump talking points. Look, it seems like she was always a shit person. And so her revealing herself to be a shit person is not really a surprise. I'm not at all surprised. So, yeah, the whole, spare me with the whole, like, oh, I can't believe she would fall from grace like this. Please. Did she really ever have any? Come on. But the book continues. Now she had her own show on Fox News, and she was using it to boost a series of unfounded allegations designed to overturn a presidential election. Now, one example, of course, is when she brought on the, who I'd like to now call the crack Karen lawyer. That's Sidney Powell. Because they released a Kraken, and she's also kind of a Karen, so it's a crack Karen. You're welcome. You're welcome. So, but she would bring on the crack Karen for nonsense interviews, and of course would offer zero pushback. Like, none at all. None at all. And Karl had written in his book, it was all a lie, but Sidney Powell's deranged theories would have never taken hold if there weren't people in positions of power and influence who had promoted them, people like Maria Bartiromo. So now that actually is really the crux of the issue. This is why this story is more than just like, oh, pop culture. Oh, look, we got interpersonal dramas between William Barr and Maria Bartiromo. Oh, look at that. They're yelling at each other. As much as that's fun, there's actually more of an important point here. Okay. We know that right-wing media is an impenetrable bubble of lies. That's it. Think of a giant force field, if you will, that surrounds conservatives. Okay, facts and information, they bounce right out, gone. All right. When you think about it, it's the literal definition of a safe space. The safest space that you will ever experience in your lifetime. Very, very warm and inviting. Oh my God, soft and fluffy blanket. Okay, you will never get challenged because everything that you don't like is either fake news or communism. Anything that makes you uncomfortable, critical race theory, that's what it is. Yeah, no, it's all bad. And by the way, it's the liberals that are the real snowflakes who don't actually believe in science because they love to conflate sex and gender, which are two different and distinct things that happen to overlap. Okay, whatever. But again, this is a safe, warm little bubble that conservative media is, and it's that they have that little reassuring voice that tells everybody inside of it that no, it's okay. You guys are right. Everyone else is wrong. Facts are wrong. You're the real victim of liberal oppression from those elitists over at the universities and schools, and that the real country, the real America is Donald Trump. And again, they love him and they're begging for him to come back and save it from the commies. That's the bubble Maria Bartiromo and her audience lives in. Now, after the election, there was a tiny little crack in that bubble. For just a minute. For just a minute, where they go, oh no, everything that we have ever believed and thought about the election was wrong. The cold, harsh reality of everything that she had come to believe about Sleepy Joe never being able to defeat Donald Trump on his own, and that it was the media that helped. Now, I find that ironic because Fox News is literally the largest, most watched cable network in the country. They consistently beat out CNN and MSNBC for ratings. And I understand, like, ratings, like, it's kind of a ridiculous tool when you think about it, because most people in this country who watch cable news are generally older and more conservative. So younger people are like, no, we don't watch MSNBC, we don't watch CNN, it's ridiculous. No, we get most of our news from online. But the older generations, people that are, I should say 50 plus, 60 plus, watch those three different networks and get their news primarily from that. And then conservatives, of course, primarily get their news from Fox News. And then you've got Newsmax and OAN, Daily Wire from Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. And so, when you have such a limited place to get your talking points, your news, again, if you're a conservative, then, well, I guess think of it this way. They all have the same talking points, and it gets spread all over that interconnected network of, like I said, Fox News, Newsmax, OAN, Facebook, et cetera, Gateway Pundit, InfoWars. They're all connected, and they all get talking points from pretty much the same place, and then they share it around. They spread it around, and then they spread the same narrative around. And that's why, of course, you hear it. Something that originates like on 4chan that gets picked up by like a right-wing blogger ends up on Fox News a week later. And that's what's going on. But, and then of course, that's where a lot of this, in this case though, there was a memo to Donald Trump. And of course, Donald Trump had believed in the whole election fraud conspiracy, of course, several years, I should say a couple of years into his presidency is when he really started talking about it way more than he had before. Oh, if I lose, it's because of voter fraud. It's going to be the voter fraud. In fact, that's kind of why I didn't get that many votes. Even though I won, I still lost, didn't have 3 million votes because they busted in 3 million people. And it's all just, voter fraud, et cetera. And they're trying to steal the election. And they're going to try and steal 2020 from me. Right. Sure. And again, as I said, Fox News is the largest of these cable networks in the country. And they will tell you that, no, it's voter fraud, it's the illegals, it's dead people, to Chinese hackers, all of these different reasons. And that's why they were able to steal it from God's chosen candidate, Trump. And so when you're surrounded with all that brain rot, well, your brain's going to melt too. It's just constantly bombarded from it. And of course, she is one of the ones who would also, spread that narrative using her own platform and melting everyone else's brain along the way. So now Barr told Carl for the book, quote, "She called me up and she was screaming. I yelled back at her. She's lost it." Carl said that he had asked for her response, noting that it's unethical for a journalist to call the Attorney General to lobby and demand he do something related to a criminal investigation. So again, understand the situation here. She gets triggered because Trump loses. She calls up William Barr. Yeah, a so-called, look, she's not a journalist. Are you kidding me? No. But she calls him up anyway. It says, "I demand that you do an investigation into why Donald Trump lost. Voter fraud. It's voter fraud. You do an investigation." Again, she's some, face on TV, and he's the head of the Department of Justice, and she's making demands of him. The gall, the fucking gall. That's how this works, unfortunately. Now, Bartiromo, Carl said, did not respond, but a Fox News spokesperson did get back to him and denied Barr's account of the conversation on Bartiromo's behalf. Because, of course, right? Now, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a problem when so-called news sources not only demand that the Department of Justice investigate political opponents, but also when they do propaganda. Now, when you disseminate disinformation to the masses in order to push a political narrative conducive to undermining small d democratic institutions, that's bad. That's very bad, not good. Now, that hurts the country. It hurts the discourse. I mean, we can't even have conversations with the conservatives at this point because they're all out there screaming, "Let's go, Brandon," and rearranging deer poop, probably with their bare hands. You can't talk to these people. You just can't. You can't have a conversation that doesn't involve one of you wanting to bash your head against a board or the wall in Roblox or Minecraft. It's frustrating. We can't talk to each other. And so it divides the people. It sows distrust into fellow citizens, neighbors, and it radicalizes the intended audience towards political violence. The right wing is already predisposed to using violence as a means to an end, as they are continuously put into a state of fear and now told by, of course, people that they trust, the people on TV, that they should be angry because the election was stolen from them. Even without any proof, but you don't need proof. And again, some people like Bartiromo actually believe this. And again, they've got the brain rot. Others like Tucker Carlson, however, well, they know they're smarter than this. But they abuse the trust of their audience and use it for personal gain. We see that, by the way, on cable news too, the abusing of trust of the viewers in order to sow narratives that will favor the rich and powerful over the working class, and in order to continue the status quo, by the way. But for right-wing media, it's actually worse. They don't just want people to keep the so-called status quo, the natural order of things that they consider to be natural at least. They want to push people further right. So not only that, so not only that corporations can go and take and keep control, as they currently do, but their politicians stay in power indefinitely while they get rewarded with money, status, and even power. Positions in the White House. You remember, Trump was considering putting people at Fox News into White House jobs. Insane. So again, that's why this relationship between Fox and the White House and the Republican Party is so incredibly dangerous to the discourse, as well as, of course, cable news. Cable news and the Democrats, by the way, as the right goes veers off into insanity, you have the Democrats and CNN that are treating the current Republican Party as if it is filled with good faith actors. Oh, we've got good faith actors and genuine conservatives, instead of what it is filled with now, corporate fascists. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.